What is up, guys? Welcome to Truth and Transparency. We have an off day, but we are still on because I want to talk about some stuff. Okay, so welcome to Truth and Transparency. I have some timestamps for us, and I got some reports for us. I got Hector for us, and so I'm going to give us a nice little recap here. All right. Again, sorry for the delay. Ooh. Again, guys, what is up? A couple notes that we're going to start off. We're going to start right off with the rip here. This is people that don't know who this is. This is Barros. Barros was called, and he was a Dighton police officer. He was called as giving a heads up to say, hey, we're going to be coming to tow a car. Now, this would be absolutely everything opposite of what they've said, as far as that they didn't know what they were going there for when Buchanan said that, you know, they hadn't seen the vehicle yet. So only the information that could possibly come from Proctor and Buchanan when they went over to Karen Reed's parents' house was just basically, it was just interviews. So check this out. This was also the guy that got the phone call when Karen Reed's dad supposedly, you know, he called earlier to the police and about his daughter, about everything that had happened, worried about her. So right here, I'm going to play this part.
I believe the first phone call was around 3 p.m. that he had called me and said that they would be there in about 10 minutes.
And upon receiving that call, what, if anything, did you do?
I had...
Okay. All right. So right there, 10 minutes. So 3 o'clock, we'll be there in 10 minutes. So that means we have a discrepancy with Proctor's testimony and Bukaki's testimony. He's saying that they were there at Canton PD, that he was waiting. Buchanan was waiting for Proctor, and Proctor said that he thought he got there first. So 9/9:15, that Buchanan said that. Proctor testified that they got there around 10. Okay, 10. So that's an hour discrepancy. Discrepancy. Now, you guys can think that's not a big deal, but it is a big deal when you're talking about a timeline. Also, you would think that after all this time, these two guys would have, you know, looked at their reports, stuff that's been offered up in discovery, but they would have been questioned about. Like these people are involved in this investigation as far as lead. When I'm talking about Buchanan and Proctor. And they come with two different times. And not only do they come with two different times, one is saying that they were waiting for the other person, and the other person said that I was there first. It's a pretty big, I mean, this is a day like none other, you know. So he gives very, very helpful testimony to who I believe is Karen Reed, and they did not even cross-examine this man. At the 158 mark, he talks about the damage to Karen Reed's. So this is a guy that would then shown up and would have seen Karen Reed's vehicle at her dad's. All right. Can you believe this? That you guys know how sneaky police officers are. You guys know how sneaky just anybody is, and how, like, you know, we all have phones. But can you guys believe that there is no picture of Karen Reed's vehicle? No picture of Karen Reed's vehicle. None. Like, at her dad's house. No picture of it. By a police officer. So here, check this out at 58 mark. Going right here.
Access inside in the driveway.
And just in reference to this driveway, just if you could, not exact footage.
Why does that even matter?
How close is this Lexus SUV parked in relation to the roadway? How long is that driveway?
It's got to be about 150 feet off the roadway, if not more.
And if you recall, from where you're standing at the,
There's about a foot of snow in the driveway.
and as far as that snow
Okay, so right there was not waist high. It was a foot of snow.
that you observed when you arrived there, was that snow, how did that snow appear as far as, did it appear as if it had been shoveled or snow blown or untouched, or how did it?
It was untouched.
Now, as you're going through the snow, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's yourself, Trooper Proctor, and the sergeant from the state police, and who, if anyone else, is going along with you?
I had an officer that was field training with me that day, and he was with me as well. And we went up to the residence.
And as you're walking up to the residence, what, if anything, did you come upon as you're going towards, say, any
Here it
door
is.
or getting closer to the home?
I remained at the garage. The two troopers went to the front door and made contact with the homeowner.
Now, as far as you were there specifically for a vehicle, correct?
Correct.
Did you observe a vehicle in the driveway at any time?
Yes, we observed a black Lexus SUV in the driveway.
And what, if any, observations did you make to the rear area of that vehicle specifically?
At first, I did not go up to the vehicle. I just remained at the driveway and waited for the troopers to come back. And once they came back, they were let into the house through the garage. I had walked in with them briefly and then went back out to the garage and remained with the vehicle.
And as far as at any point in time, did you have any conversation with anyone named Karen Reed that day while you were at the house?
I did not.
Now, with respect to you come back out to the garage, is that correct?
Correct.
And the troopers are inside the house, is that also correct?
Correct.
Now, at some point, do other vehicles come down to the driveway area of this residence that you were at?
I had contacted the highway superintendent after speaking with the troopers about how to retrieve the vehicle since the driveway was untouched and had about a foot of snow. I had made the decision that I would call the highway superintendent and see if that he would come and plow the driveway so that the tow truck would have access inside in the driveway.
And just in reference to this driveway, just if you could, not exact footage. or
Why does that
anything,
even
but
matter?
How close is this Lexus SUV parked in relation to the roadway? How long is that drive?
It's got to be about 150 feet off the roadway, if not more.
And if you recall, from where you're standing at the point of the garage, was what part of the vehicle was facing you? Was it the front of the vehicle, the back of the vehicle, the side of the vehicle?
I was looking at the left side of the vehicle.
And at some point, did you make any observations of the right rear part of that?
Oh, that's where we're
Lexus
going
SUV?
with this.
I did.
And what, if
Oh,
anything,
okay.
did you observe about that area of the vehicle?
There we go.
I saw that there was some damage to the right rear taillight.
Okay.
To my best ability and recollection, that tail light was not completely damaged. It was cracked and a piece was missing, but not completely damaged.
Right there. They decided not to even cross-examine this man. Boom. Right there. A piece was missing. A piece was missing. Cracked. It was cracked. It was cracked. And a piece was missing.
And then beyond the taillight area of that vehicle, what, if anything else, did you observe as far as damage to the rear passenger side area?
Like a dent
Like a dent.
on the rear quarter.
And as far as the dent on the rear quarter panel that you saw, was that above the taillight, below the taillight, or something?
It's probably right in conjunction with the taillight in that same area.
And from the time that you made these observations of the vehicle, at any point did you go sort of physically up to the vehicle?
I walked up to the vehicle, correct.
And about how far away from the vehicle did you get?
5 to 10 feet away.
And as far as the sort of outside or exterior of the vehicle, you mentioned obviously there was about a foot of snow on the ground. What, anything precipitation-wise or weather-wise was around or on the outside of the vehicle?
Just snow.
And in particular, in this area of the right rear passenger side and that tail light, was there any snow or ice or anything around that area that you observed?
On the vehicle itself?
Yes.
Yes, on the vehicle, there was snow on the vehicle.
And not to put words in your mouth, but sort of caked on there, is that correct?
I guess you could say caked on, correct?
So you'd reached out to the highway superintendent to have someone come out and plow the driveway, correct?
Correct.
And
So that's the testimony that he gave. I will say this though as well. I'm just surprised that he didn't take a photo. I'm surprised that people aren't taking photos. Okay. Now, everything has been taken over by Proctor's and his text messages. Okay. I want us to focus on what Proctor actually said that had nothing to do with the text messages, because he truly did not testify to that much. And so here we go, talking about Proctor and his, so we're going to go away from, let's see, 234. And before we go to that, I want to show everybody what I showed yesterday, which was, this is, I want people to focus on, that's your curb with no shoe. For saying and how that happened. One of the first exhibits. Okay. That's the curb. Here, it's the same curb part, and that's where they planted the shoe. And this is why they had to switch the cover page off of the, hold on. Where did I start talking about the cover page? Right there. This was the cover page that Good did, and they had to change it. Okay, that's the day after. She was already arrested. Look at all that snow. Right here. This is why he had to, this was on the front page of the report, was that picture. And this is why they had to change this picture with something else, because that's actually where they planted the shoe, because the shoe then would have been found by Canton Police. But it was not found by Canton Police. Okay. And they then therefore had to remove this area. All right. So that's what I showed yesterday. And this is why Alan Jackson went over this a bunch. Now we're understanding why he did this. Okay. Now let's see. I want to go to 220. This is when Proctor makes his way on down.
with the detective units, as far as, you have sort of an on-call system?
We do.
And can you explain to the jury sort of how that works, or how those specific days for your on-call duties are assigned?
Sure. So a Sergeant Mechanic usually sets the on-call rotation. It's at random, and your on-call is from 7 a.m. to 7 a.m. Any unattended death, homicide, suicide, overdose, things of that nature that comes in during that time.
Call next.
I contacted Sergeant Mechanic, advised him that this sounds like it's more than a medical situation.
And what any decisions did you and Sergeant Mechanic come to with regards to what to do, or where to go, or what the next steps?
So there's a couple different steps.
Okay, so right there, he says that he called Buchanan and let him know what's going on. Well, there's a phone call that's missing. There's a phone call that's missing there. And we're going to get to it on cross here. The phone call that's missing is who calls him? Who calls Proctor? And based on the previous testimony, it's going to be Lank. Lank and Proctor are going to be talking. And remember when Alan Jackson shows Lank footage from the dash cam, and he says, "You're on the phone there. Who are you talking to at that point? Who are you talking to at this point? Who are you talking to at that point? Who are you talking to at this point?" So that was back in day like 3 to 6 during the trial. Now we finally get to Proctor, and Proctor says that he's the one that calls Buchanan, aka Bukaki, and notifies him that this is something else. Well, what time is that phone call? So again, right here at the 2:37 and about, we'll start it here just to see.
I'm going to allow it.
Firefighter Flamati informed me that Mr. O'Keefe had some injuries to his right arm.
Okay. Now, this is a really important part to break down because Alan Jackson objected to this. So I want to go right here with it.
I'm going to allow it.
No, Bev, you're not.
Firefighter Flamati
36, there it is.
was on scene, so I called Detective Link.
So that was some information that you had received at some point earlier. And then you
See, I called Detective Lank.
Sergeant Lank.
He says he calls him. Okay, I called Detective Lank. Back it up even more.
And based on that initial call and that initial information that you received, what, if anything, did you do?
Okay, gotta back it up more.
With the detective units, as far as you have sort of an on-call system,
We do.
and can you explain to the jury sort of how that works or how those specific days for your on-call duties are assigned?
Sure. So a Sergeant Buchanan usually sets the on-call rotation. It's at random, and your on-call is from 7 a.m. to 7 a.m. Any unattended death, homicide, suicide, overdose, things of that nature that comes in during that time frame, you own it. That's your call.
You're
Now,
on
working
it.
in that
You're on
capacity
it.
With the detective units on January 29th, 2022.
Yes.
And at some point in the morning, did you receive a call in regard to a situation in the town of Canton?
I did.
Right there. At some point, did you receive a call? At some point, did you receive a call? This is important because it's never cleared up. At some point, did you receive a call? And he says, I did. Okay, I want to know who called. All right, I want to know who called.
And what, if anything, was that? When did you first receive that call?
Sergeant Buchanan called me at approximately 6:48.
So there you go. 6:48. I believe in the reports, they got it wrong when they said that Berkowitz called. Now, in the reports, he doesn't say you own it. He says you're on it. You're on it. I went over it and over it and over it. Jane and I'm going with is that you're on it. You're on it because that's your call. Like you're on it. Like it's 7 to 7 and it's happened before 7. You're on it. Now, in the reports that I have, it's saying that Berkowitz was involved in this like phone call. Unless somebody made a typo. Okay. So Proctor's the on-call person. Again, this is their story. This is their story. And that he says that he received a call from Bukaki at 6:48 a.m. All right. And then he calls Lank.
That Saturday morning advised that Canton PD had a mail party that was discovered in the snow. Outside of a residence, and he wasn't sure what had happened. It was originally given to me as a possible medical situation.
And based on that initial call and that initial information that you received, what, if anything, did you do?
And at that point, I knew I needed to gather further information, so I contacted Detective Lank from Canton Police Department to see exactly what transpired in the morning.
Okay, perfect. Now, Alan Jackson nailed it. Alan Jackson was playing the dash cam and nailing down these times. Okay, because at 6:48, he's saying he's just made aware. Okay, if you go back and you look at the dash cam, which I'm going to show, the phone calls that began with Lank. So the first person that should have been talking to Lank, I guess you could say, he said that he calls Lank. All right. On his cell phone, how did he get that phone number? But it had this call has to happen way later, because if he just gets a phone call from Bukaki at 6:48, then he's going to call Lank. Well, Lank's inside talking to the homeowners at that time. You guys can't make this shit up. So he says he calls Lank. And I'm telling you, that phone call happened way earlier. But he was at Alan Jackson kept saying, "Who are you talking to? Who are you talking to? Who are you talking to? Who are you talking to?" Okay. Timelines don't lie.
He had informed me that a male party had been transported to Good Samaritan Hospital with some injuries. Detective Lane didn't have much more information, so I knew I needed to contact.
Right there, that's a lie. Detective Lank knew that he was a Boston police officer. Okay. Boston police officer. If you're talking to Detective Lank, you knew that the person you're transporting is a Boston police officer. Okay. At that point, you know that. Because now I know who you talked to, and now I know the time frame that you talked to him, which was after 6:48 a.m. And
The paramedic at the hospital, the individual was treating.
Wait, now what does he say right there? Because he's going to talk about Flamati. And he's lying about all this. He got it off of a report. So hang tight here. 35, 36, 36. Back it up.
Samaritan Hospital with some injuries. Detective Lane didn't have much more information, so I knew I needed to contact the paramedic at the hospital, the individual was treating Mr. O'Keefe.
Now, before we get to that, if I could, I'm sorry. As far as
God, I really wanted him to continue right there, but he says right there, I needed to contact. Remember, this is all happening. So this is like at 7 o'clock in the morning. I need to contact, what?
as Sergeant Lang was concerned, was that someone that you called on your own, or how did you get it?
Okay, here.
Why did you call him specifically?
I knew he was on scene, so I called Detective Link.
So that was some information that you had received at some point earlier, and then you contacted Detective Sergeant Lang.
Correct.
How did he receive that information so quickly? He led him to that answer. That's leading. That's leading. Right there, that's leading.
And following that, you reached out to who? I'm sorry?
This firefighter, Anthony Flamati.
Okay, so you're going to tell me that you reached out to Flamati. Okay, so now this is somebody's Flamati. He reached out to him. Okay, ready?
And with reference to that conversation, what, if anything, did you learn from that?
Firefighter Flamati informed me that
I'm going to allow it.
Firefighter Flamati informed me that Mr. O'Keefe had some injuries to his right arm, some abrasions to his right arm, some injuries to his eyes, a cut to the nose area, and he put a 10% chance of survival for Mr. O'Keefe.
And based on that information, who did you call next?
I contacted Sergeant Mechanic, advised him that this sounds like it's more than a medical situation.
So then he says he calls so he goes, Bukaki called him 6:48. Then he calls Lank. Then he calls Flamati. Like, how do you have these people's numbers? Like, you just this is just if Alan Jackson wants to go like step by step, these people are FUCK'd because he's going to say, well, what would you say if this person testified this way, that they never got a call from you? Okay. So then he calls after he talks to Flamati. He calls Buchanan again and says that this seems to be more serious than, there seems to be more to it. Okay. And he's trying to put this on what Flamati was telling him. Okay. Versus because he just said that Lank didn't have that much information. Okay.
And what, if any, decision did you and Sergeant Mechanic come to with regard to what to do, or where to go, or what the next steps should be?
So there's a couple different steps. Number one, it was blizzard conditions, and we operate, Ford Fusions or Chevy Malibu. So we got authorization to use our personal vehicles that are four-wheel drive, and to meet that Canton PD and to speak with the responding officers.
And about what time was it that you and Sergeant Mechanic arrived at the Canton Police Department?
It was approximately 10 a.m. that morning.
And so, Trooper Proctor,
Right there. It was approximately 10 a.m. that morning. Buchanan testifies that Buchanan was there first, and he was there around 9:15, and then Proctor, got there, and then they walked in. And he waited for Proctor, basically in the parking lot. Okay. Now, at the same time that this is happening, at 9:23 a.m., Higgins would use his swipe badge pass, whatever you want to call it. He used his card, and he is now on premises at the Canton Police Department at 9:23 a.m. Okay.
if I could ask you, whereabouts were you at about 8:20?
Buchanan said 9:15.
Home.
Had you shoveled out of your driveway at that time?
Not yet.
Had you cleaned up your car at that time?
No.
That's where he was at 8:20 a.m. 8:20 a.m.
So you arrived at the Canton Police Station about 10 a.m. or so. When was it that you arrived in relation to Sergeant Buchanan?
Yeah, Canton PD?
Yes.
I don't recall if Sergeant Buchanan arrived first or myself.
But suffice it to say, that sometime you both arrived around 10 a.m. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And where did you go with Canton Police when you arrived there?
We spoke with the Sergeant Sean Good.
And what, if anything, did you learn from Sergeant Good?
Sergeant Good informed us that while he was on scene, he identified Kerry Roberts, Jennifer McCabe, Karen Reed. He also informed us that Jennifer McCabe was out early in the night at a waterfall bar in Canton with some individuals, and that she was the one who called 911 when they found Mr. O'Keefe in the snow that morning.
I'm going to tell you why they had to push this back to 10. I'm going to tell you why they had to push this back to 10. They had to push this back to 10 versus 9 or 9:15 because Lank was over at the Alberts. Lank's over at the Alberts with Gallagher. All right. And so this is the thing, is that there's no way that Sergeant Good would know any of this at 10 o'clock a.m. Or, I mean, at 9 o'clock a.m. because Lank wouldn't have been back with any of this. Okay. So in order for Sean Good to know this information, it would have to be given to him by Lank. And if they're talking about this at 9 or 9:15, Lank isn't there yet. Lank is at the Alberts residence. Okay. So explain to me why Trooper Proctor wouldn't have just met Lank at the Alberts residence. That just seems like where that would happen. Okay. To go meet at the Canton Police Department. Yeah, maybe you were deciding to do that. Well, Lank's over there at the house, so why wouldn't you go over there? You would. Anybody that's worth a damn would. I mean, unless they're not there anymore. But you have Buchanan who testified that said that they were at Canton Police Department at 9 or 9:15. But anyways, so for Good to have this information, that would mean that Lank would have had to come back from the Alberts residence to report on all of this shit. That's why they pushed it back to 10 on why this is allegedly happening.
The parties that you just mentioned, prior to January 29, 2022.
Now, if we go back to what Julie Alberts testified to, and Higgins testified to, they said that in that house at the Alberts residence, there was like 5 to 6 people in there. Who are these 5 to 6 people? Okay. Julie Alberts she didn't want to say who these people were. She didn't want to say this man's name because now we realize that the relationship is Julie Alberts with this family. Okay. If you go back and you listen to Julie Alberts' testimony, Julie Alberts says that there was 5 or 6 people in that house and that she named her, obviously John McCabe, Matt McCabe. She said Nicole, Brian. Then she's like, oh, maybe Brian Higgins was there. I don't remember. And she said that there was people there that she did not know. There had to be way more than 5 to 6 people in that house. Let me tell you why. Because Lank and Gallagher make 2. Julie makes 3. Jen, her husband, then the Coco, then the Brian Albert. I mean, this is just flat out lies about how many people were in that house when Lank came back at 9 o'clock, just so you guys know that.
Met, or were you aware of either Jennifer McCabe or Kerry Roberts, Karen Reed, or John?
And so the lie, in my opinion, is saying that you got the information from Anthony Flamati versus going to that house, talking about the injuries on John. Okay. Because guess what? Sean Good, you observed, what time did you get there? You already got there. He was already in the ambulance. You guys know that, right? Or I'm sorry, not Sean Good. Sean Good had got there. He got there like 6:11, 6:12 in the morning because his was the second dash cam. It was Lank that got there at 6:26. So John O'Keefe was already in the ambulance when Lank arrived at 6:26.
I've never met any of them.
And at some point subsequent, did you have occasion to meet and speak with Ms. Reed?
Yes,
And do you see Ms. Reed in the courtroom today?
I do.
Just for clarification purposes, if you could identify as to where she's seated or an article of clothing that she's wearing.
She's seated between Mr. Jackson and Mr. Yannetti wearing a pinstripe sport coat.
Just ask a record reflect identification.
Yes.
Now, after you speak with Sergeant Good, did you speak with anybody else at the Camp Police Station?
No.
And where did yourself?
Okay, so I want to throw this. This is also a possibility here, is that if Brian Higgins was there and he realized that like Proctor and Buchanan and them were coming to the house, Brian Albert's house, that could also be another reason that Brian Higgins left and went to the Canton Police Department so that he wouldn't be there when they came, which is why he swiped in at 9:23. Okay. And then these people were then at the house and then came to Canton Police Department at 10. So I want you to think about that as well. Go and wait over there at Canton Police Department, Higgins, versus driving, 20 minutes away at wherever the hell you were living, Roxy, wherever the hell you were, So.
Sergeant Mechanical.
We then traveled to the home of Matthew and Jennifer McCabe.
Okay.
Now,
Now I have the timestamp on this. 11:30 is when that took place. 11:30 a.m. Okay. So this would mean, just think about it, regardless of what anybody's saying, whatever you want to believe or not, but 11:30 a.m., Trooper Proctor and Buchanan go to Jen McCabe's house. This is their story.
with reference to when I say you and Sergeant Mechanic, at how long a period of time was it?
Thank you,
that
Sherry
were with
Davis, for the
Sergeant
Cash
Mechanic
App.
on that
Whoop,
date of
whoop.
January 29th?
It's from 10 a.m. approximately when we met at Canton Police Department until when we returned to the Canton Police Department that afternoon around 5:30 in the afternoon. So all day. We also had a debrief meeting with just the troopers in my office at Canton PD. So at least from 10 to 6, 7, because we also went back to the office with some evidence.
And so from that entire time from 10 in the morning until
Who did you debrief with? Okay, who did you debrief with? Because Canton's out of it. Canton's off of it, right? So when you're doing this debriefing with your troopers at Canton, I'm just curious who was there for the debriefing session. Let's go ahead and do this. I'm making my chat 1 second, guys. There we go. There's no court today.
until later on in the night, other than maybe short drives in individual cars. Were you essentially with Sergeant Mechanic that entire day?
Yes, we used Sergeant Buchanan's pickup truck that entire day. I left my personal vehicle at the police department, and I rode with Sergeant Buchanan all day into the evening.
Now, from the Canton Police Station, where did you and Sergeant Mechanic go?
The McCabe's house in Canton.
And who, if anyone, did you speak with?
We spoke with Matthew and Jennifer McCabe, as well as Brian Albert.
And those interviews that you conducted with
Okay. So I want to stop right there. And I want to talk about when he first texted his sister. Let's see. Courtney. January 29th. Just interviewed Jen McCabe. 6:04 in 40 seconds. So I just want to, we're going to come back to this timestamp here. So he says, I just interviewed Jen McCabe. Says that she knows you. It's suspicious, and I'm gonna have to interview Julie and Chris.
they, how were they conducted?
One-on-one, Sergeant Mechanic and myself kind of rotated out Jennifer, Matthew, and Brian. So first we interviewed Jennifer, and then once that was completed, we had her step out, go to a separate room, brought in Matthew, and then the same thing with Brian.
And for the balance of the interviews that you conducted several interviews over the course of your investigation in this case, is that correct?
Correct.
And for those interviews, as far as individually done, was that primarily what you did with each of the people that you interviewed over the course of the investigation?
Yes, each interview conducted was either with Sergeant Mechanic or another trooper in one-on-one, with the exception of Julie and Chris L, that I believe were in the same room as us.
Now, with respect to, I believe you just answered it, but as far as each of the interviews that you conducted over the course of your investigation, was it at any point in time, was there an interview that you conducted just by yourself?
There was just one.
And
All right, so that takes us from 11:30 to 12:30. Now, on the evidence bag that he would collect from the hospital, on the evidence bag, it says that he collected that at 1400 hours, like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So from this trip, then he says he goes to the, what do you call it? He goes to the hospital. Let's see if that's how he says it.
that one that you conducted by yourself?
That took place just at the grand jury across the street. It was the Currans. I had some difficulty locating them, so when they appeared for grand jury, I interviewed them one-on-one by myself prior to their testimony at grand jury.
You had attempted to meet with them prior to them coming to the grand jury, is that correct?
Yes.
And they had not been responsive to that?
Correct.
However, they were responsive to the summons, and so you interviewed them before they went into the grand jury, correct?
Yes.
Other than those, as far as Mr. and Mrs. Harding, every interview that you conducted was in the presence of at least one other trooper?
Correct.
Now, as far as you mentioned one name that we hadn't discussed before at the McCabe household, a Brian Albert. Prior to January 29, 2022, had you ever met or were you aware or did you know Brian Albert?
And I met Brian Albert until
So he's from Canton. He's from Canton. He grew up in Canton, and Trooper Proctor is saying that he doesn't know who Brian fucking Albert is. You want me to believe that? Okay, think about that. Just think about that. I don't even know if that's believable. He's such a bigwig, right? You want me to believe that you don't know who Brian Albert is and that you never met him? Just such a small town, guys.
that interview.
Now, following the interviews that you conducted at the McCabe household, where did you go from there?
After the interviews at the McCabe household, Sergeant Mechanic and I traveled to Good Samaritan Hospital for two reasons. One, we knew Miss Reed was there receiving treatment for Section 12. And two, we wanted to view Mr. O'Keefe.
Okay. Right there, he says that we knew that Miss Reed was receiving treatment there for Section 12. Miss Reed was already long gone, guys. Miss Reed is seen on John O'Keefe's Ring camera at 12:30. Okay. 12:30. She goes to pick up her belongings / wants to see the kids, goes to One Meadows. One Meadows. You understand that? Jen McCabe had Karen's phone number. Think about this. They're in Canton. It's a blizzard. Allegedly, it's a blizzard. Karen Reed was in Canton. He's in Canton at the McCabe's. Okay, can I get Karen Reed's number? All right. Wouldn't you want to? Why would you want to be driving all over if it's a blizzard? And then he says that he knew that she got Section 12. Dude, she was gone way long. We have her on the camera of the Ring camera. 2 reasons, he said. 2 reasons. To see Karen and to go see John. Remember, John had been pronounced dead. Okay. John had been pronounced dead at 7:50. 7:50. So this is my take on it. Why were any of these people called prior to 7:50 in the morning? He just spoke on why he would ever be like what he unattended deaths. Unattended deaths. Well, it's not a death yet until after 7:50. Just letting you guys know that. And now we have phone calls though from mass police getting involved an hour before. Proctor is 0.9 miles from CPD. Yeah, Proctor lives in Canton. Buchanan lives in Canton. These are Canton people.
And when you arrived at the Good Samaritan Hospital, was the defendant, Ms. Reed, still at that facility at that time?
We spoke with the security staff at Good Samaritan Hospital. They informed us that Miss Reed was released.
I'll allow it, just to where you went.
That Miss Reed was released several hours prior to our arrival.
Thank you.
Did you know about what time it was that you arrived?
So in a blizzard, this is what you're doing. In a blizzard, this is what you're doing. They have no problem making phone calls for everything else. You don't think to make a phone call to see if she's still there? Like, it's because stuff wasn't ready yet, guys.
Mechanic at the Good Samaritan?
Maybe approximately 1 o'clock.
And you mentioned there was a second reason, and that was to view Mr. O'Keefe, correct?
That's correct.
In your application, did you have a chance to view Mr. O'Keefe?
I think the reason he says 1 o'clock is because there's proof that the interview with him and everything that went on at the John McCabe's house was from 11:30 to 12:30. Whatever went on over there was from 11:30 to 12:30. And so he's saying about 1 o'clock. He's saying about how long it takes to get from that point to that point.
Mr. O'Keefe's body at the Good Samaritan?
We did.
And where was that within the hospital?
That was in the emergency room.
And when you went to where Mr. O'Keefe was, can you describe for the jury what, if any, observations you made of Mr. O'Keefe's body at the time that you observed?
The first thing I noticed on Mr. O'Keefe is he had abrasions on his right arm. On the top of his right arm is approximately 6 to 8, ranging from his forearm to his lower bicep. There was no injuries underneath that forearm. Both eyes were swollen and black and blue. He had a cut on, I believe it was his right nostril. Another smaller cut, I believe it was on his left eye.
So they would have been there for an hour, 1 hour before he decides to put his clothes, John O'Keefe's clothes, in a bag, in an evidence bag. 1 hour. Because if he's arriving there at 1, if he left at 12:30, he says he gets there at 1, they would have been in John O'Keefe's room area at 1 o'clock from 1, and then he doesn't bag anything for an hour. Okay. Because the bag says 2 p.m.
Those are the injuries that kind of jumped out to me.
At any point in time, did you make any observations of the back of Mr. O'Keefe's head while you were there?
I did observe blood on the back of the head. I wasn't able to tell if there's any significant trauma to the back of his head.
Now, from the Good Samaritan Hospital, yourself and Sergeant Buchanan, what, if any, items did you secure in evidence from the Good Samaritan Hospital?
So after we viewed Mr. O'Keefe's body, we observed a pile of clothes in the corner that hospital staff had cut off Mr. O'Keefe and kind of piled into the corner. The one thing that had jumped out to both of us was one sneaker. And it's fairly common in a motor vehicle pedestrian strike that.
Sustained.
Okay, this is what I think is interesting. He had that sneaker on. Okay, so that means that at some point somebody took that sneaker off. You understand? Like, he would have had his sneakers on, the one with his socks on, right? But nobody talks about the sneakers or the socks. Why would his sneaker been off? If you're cutting off the jeans, you don't need to take off the shoe. So who took off his sneaker that his sneaker would have been in a pile with the clothes? Right? Because if you're going to take the sneaker off his shoe, I mean, his foot, why wouldn't you take his socks off his feet? Again, this is like you're at the hospital. If you would have talked to Flamati, though, Flamati knew that he only had one sneaker on. So that shouldn't have been the first time that you heard about that, because Flamati would have told you that if you really talked to Flamati. Flamati said what they weren't in the ambulance about knowing about his sneaker. We're gonna get to that. We're gonna go back and we're gonna listen to little Mr. Flamati talk about his little choke job. So, but where's the socks? Did he not have socks? And who took his shoe off of his? You guys, there's the one shoe that is still at the residence. Okay, this is the shoe that's on this man in an ambulance as he is going to the hospital. They decide to cut off his shoe. So did they then take off his shoe? Did he truly have both of his shoes on and they decided to take one of them and act like it was left? Where are his socks? If you are cutting off somebody's clothing, especially their jeans, you do not need to take off their shoe. Shoes are removed to go into a hospital bed. What about their socks? This man has to have socks. Okay, now.
I'll strike them fairly.
Alan Jackson on the cross.
As far as the clothing that you observed, can you describe the clothing that you observed?
Yes. We observed one black sneaker with the Nike logo, a pair of blue jeans, a belt, boxer shorts, an orange T-shirt, and a two-tone gray, light kind of hooded sweatshirt type of material.
Now, Trooper Proctor, over the course of your career responding to unattended deaths or death investigations,
I don't care about that.
As a detective of unit, how many of those have involved the clothing that you observed at the hospital and the clothing that you observed in the video?
So the videos I reviewed at C.F. McCarthy's bar and the Waterfall bar were the same clothes Mr. O'Keefe was wearing that Sergeant Mechanic and I had secured at Good Samaritan Hospital.
All right, now here's the part.
Some questions just in regard to
ridiculous.
Just in regard to securing these items specifically as evidence, but in general terms, as far as securing items and evidence within your unit.
Okay.
How is that accomplished? How is that done? What do you do with items that you deem of evidentiary value that you then secure?
Generally, if we take an item for evidence, we'll put it in a brown paper bag, document it, time, date, who secured that item, address, where it's discovered, and then we'll bring that back to our office, to the evidence processing area. From there, it'll go to a permanent evidence room that has triple retention. It has an actual key, a key card, and an actual access code. And only 3 members of my office have access to that room: the 2 evidence officers and Detective Lieutenant Tully.
And at this time, in January 29th, 2022, who was assigned as the evidence officers who had access to that room?
So that'd be Trooper David Achico and Trooper Jeffrey Kukowski.
2 total shitbags. And then Tully. So does he not have, so he basically say, I don't even have access to that. Now, we're not disputing that because you didn't get stuff to the evidence locker room. My question now is going to be, all right, if Canton Police, Canton Police Department, whatever evidence they got while they were there, okay, when they should have just been securing a scene and watching it. Man the scene, watch it, make sure nobody comes in this area. Okay, that's what should have been happening because you're not going to have this case. Wait till we get there, man it, we'll do it, right? So then what happens then with what's the transfer process? Canton Police Department has these red Solo cups, okay, in a brown bag. All right. If they're not going to be on the case anymore, who do I give those to? Notice how homie here, Lally, doesn't even talk about, receiving evidence from the Canton Police Department.
Did either yourself or Sergeant Buchanan have any access to that evidence storage?
No.
Now, with reference to these items.
I'm almost positive that Buchanan testified that Trooper Proctor would have access to the evidence room, seeing that he is the lead on the case. I'm going to have to go back and find that. I believe that Alan Jackson asked him that specifically.
Items that were seized and say items that were seized subsequent during the course of your investigation, did they go through that same sort of evidentiary storage process that you were speaking about before?
Yes.
Now,
wait, what did you just say? Did he just try to sneak that in there? Hold on.
Only 3 members of my office have access to that room, the 2 evidence officers and Detective Lieutenant Tully.
and at this time, in January 29th, 2022, who was assigned as the evidence officers who had access to that room?
So that'd be Trooper David Achico and Trooper Jeffrey Kukowski.
Did either yourself or Sergeant Buchanan have any access to that evidence storage?
No.
Listen to this part.
Now, with reference to these items that were seized and say items that were seized subsequent during the course of your investigation, did they go through that same sort of evidentiary storage process that you were speaking about before?
Yes.
Now, with reference to, in addition to the clothing items, at some point did you come into possession and seize Mr. O'Keefe's phone?
Yes.
And
Here's
you
the
recall where
phone.
it was that you received or retrieved Mr. O'Keefe's phone from?
We received it at the Canton Police Department
And was that prior to you going to the Good Samaritan?
after, I believe.
Boom. Now the phone. He's saying that he received the phone after he went to the Good Samaritan. Look at how he just pushes on over this.
So following the Good Samaritan, where did you go from there?
So after the Good Samaritan Hospital, Sergeant Buchanan and I traveled to 345 Country Hill Drive in Dighton.
And why did you go to that location?
This is going to be
That was the residence of Miss Reed's parents' home, and having a brief conversation with Miss Reed on the phone, she informed us she was at her parents' house.
So you had called Ms. Reed, spoken to her, and informed her that you were coming there to speak, correct?
Correct.
And just as you had done with Ms. McCabe, you spoke to Ms. Reed within her home.
Yes.
And who, if anyone else, did you reach out to on your way there with regard to local law enforcement as you were driving to Dighton?
We contacted the Dighton Police Department just for a couple of reasons. One, it's a common courtesy. If we're in another town, we just kind of give the local PD a heads up. But also, we needed to coordinate a plow truck and.
Why, you guys? Anytime a prosecutor is just going to gaze over like the big important piece of evidence, like a phone. Oh, so you just got it from the Canton Police Department. It was just like chilling. Where was it in a? Was it just what at the front desk? Just like lost and found. Like, how did you get this man's phone? Because were the red Solo cups just waiting for you, just like how John's phone was waiting for you then? Because think about it. You have to look at the red Solo cups in the same capacity as the phone. They are both pieces of evidence that were obtained by allegedly Canton Police Department or Canton first responders, whatever you want to say. So the red Solo cups, why didn't you take possession of the red Solo cups if you took possession of John's phone? You guys understand that? Like, it's the same fucking thing. It's evidence that Canton Police has. Was the phone just in the lost and found? So, like I've been saying this whole time, John's phone, okay, this is you want us to believe this. So, and the jury's not going to believe Proctor. So I believe Alan Jackson can go any which way he wants with this, and I hope he goes the digital evidence route to show that he's lying about everything with John's phone. Because then when his experts come on about the phone, then they're all following that same line of thought that Alan Jackson is showing about his phone, about John's phone. Because nobody believes this man. Nobody's going to believe this man. The jury is not going to believe a word he has to say. I believe that the jury thinks he's biased, and so therefore nail out this timeline right here through him and get it your way. Get it the way of the evidence of the phones.
Potentially a tow truck as well.
And why did you need to coordinate those?
At the time, there must have been at least a foot of snow on the ground, more. And it was a dead-end cul-de-sac, so which made it difficult to navigate. So we requested the plow to clear a path for Sergeant Buchanan and I to get down the roadway, as well as clear the driveway of the residence, so the tow truck could pull into the driveway.
Now, as far as the drive,
Wait a second now. This is hilarious. So he is saying that he called for a plow to come down the actual physical street to plow it so that they could get their car down there. Okay. So you're basically saying, did the plow make it before you or after you?
from Good Samaritan, that's in Brockton, is that correct?
Yes.
As far as the drive from the Good Samaritan Brockton to the defendant's parents' home in Dighton, about how long a drive was that, and how would you describe the weather conditions along the way?
Yeah, with the weather conditions were white out, high winds, blizzard conditions. We had to travel very slow. It was almost about an hour to get there.
And when you arrived there, you're in Sergeant Mechanic's truck, is that correct?
Correct.
And where did Sergeant Mechanic position the truck in relation to the house at 345 Country?
From what I recall, Sergeant Mechanic went down the cul-de-sac and turned around, and he actually had to let me out first because of the high snowbanks, and then he parked kind of along the snow, pointing essentially to Mr. Reed's house.
And at some point, did members of the Dighton police come along and join?
Yes.
And do you recall who those people were?
I believe one of the officers' last name was Baros or Barros.
And had you ever met that officer before?
No.
Now, with respect to the home, had you and Sergeant Mechanic approached the home at any point prior to the Dighton police showing up?
I can't recall if, no, they had arrived first before we approached the home.
And when you approached the home, you went, what did you traverse? How did you get from the street to the home?
We walked down the driveway, and then we observed Miss Reed's Lexus parked in the driveway.
Wait,
the front
what?
facing one of the garage doors. That's when we observed the broken taillight on the right side of the vehicle. We then proceeded to the front door.
And they didn't take a picture. So his testimony is that the Dighton police officer, they were there first. And that he wanted someone to come down there and to plow so they could get through.
The snow was about up to our waist, and knocked on the door, and was
The snow was about up to our waist. I mean, what the fuck?
greeted by Mr. Reed.
So as you're walking,
So again, though, did not take a picture. Like you walk up, you are a police officer. If you are saying everything that you think that up to this point that you think has happened and it's more than this, why wouldn't you take a picture of her vehicle? Also, you don't have a search warrant yet. How are you just going to take this vehicle? We're just going to take this vehicle. Yes, Barros called the highway superintendent. You guys, I mean, why wouldn't you take a picture? Any police officer would take out their phone and take a picture. Remember, they're planning. So that before even talking to Karen Reed, never seeing this vehicle, they made all of these phone calls before ever seeing her vehicle. That, hey, we're like, this is evidence. We're taking this. We're taking the car.
up the driveway towards the home, you see Miss Reed's vehicle, is that correct?
Yes.
And that's a vehicle that you later subsequently found to be registered.
What's up? What's up, girl?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
You guys, I want to know the legality on that.
documents.
I want to know the legality on them being able to just take this vehicle and tow it.
Review that. Finish.
Did he say that Dighton got there before they got there?
Yes.
That's not true. Because Dighton testified you guys just saw the guy that was just on the stand. He said that he got there after they were already there, just so we're clear. And they were just sitting in a vehicle off, like, we just heard, like, what? You know, sometimes you just can't even believe what you're hearing. Like, you're like, wait, what?
Yes.
What do you recognize?
The registry motor vehicles.
There is some kind of suspicion hold?
Miss Reed's Lexus.
Is that the plate information that's contained in there? Is that the same plate that was affixed to Ms. Reed's vehicle on that day?
Yes,
And that
Allegedly.
also details sort of the history of how long she's had possession of that
No.
vehicle. Is that fair to say?
correct.
Going back to, I believe, 2021. Is that correct?
Yes.
May I approach her?
Yes.
I will seek to introduce and admit as the next exhibit. No objection.
Okay.
They said they were
Alright,
34.
And
So,
so, a piece of evidence there, which is
so they said they were in there to talk to Karen for like 30 or 40 minutes, by the way. And so 3 o'clock, the phone call to Barros, and then that they'd be there in 10 minutes, which they're trying to say they got there at 3:10. We have 4:12, but the tow truck was there towing away at 4:16.
Yeah.
Now, with respect to Ms. Reed, at some point you go into the house. Is that correct?
Yes.
And how do you enter into the defense car?
Sergeant Mechanic and I, after we knocked on the front door,
I don't really. That's not my. I'm going to see this part
first thing we do is we put it in airplane mode,
right here.
and then we give it to a cell phone expert in our office, Trooper Nicholas Garino, and he essentially tries to access the data in that phone once a search warrant is obtained.
Now, as far as putting that cell phone in what you described as airplane mode, what is the purpose of that?
It's to avoid if someone wants to go on a tablet or a laptop and access the information on their phone, and they can start deleting stuff off their iCloud. This prevents.
Okay, so let's talk about John's phone and then again. Think about this. If in fact John's phone was at Canton Police Department, it would be very important to do what? To get a hold of John's phone and to put it in airplane mode, right? To put it in airplane mode. And since he went to Canton Police Department first, before he ever went to Jen McCabe's house, and then Good Samaritan, and then to Karen Reed's, wouldn't you think it'd be very, very, very important? And this is why this is why Carrie Roberts is saying that she gave it to a first responder. Okay. And it's gonna be like that they missed each other's paths. All right. Which I want to see some logs. I want to see when the ambulance made it back. Because if it was a first responder, like firefighter or something like that, if they went to the hospital or EMT, and then once they got back from that ride to then, but there's a reason that Carrie Roberts said that she passed it off to how she said it. But that phone should have been put into airplane mode right away, because you have no idea if Karen Reed has access to John's stuff and could have got on the iCloud. His iCloud accounts are deleting things, right? So this goes against completely, like, why wouldn't you do the same thing with John's phone? The most important phone, if you ask me, would be the victim's phone.
That.
So you secure the phone, you secure the vehicle on the tow truck, and then where does Sergeant Mechanic go from there?
We follow the tow truck from the address in Dighton to the Canton Police Department. We're secured in the Sallyport Bay.
And if you know approximately what time was it that you arrived at the Canton Police Department and secured the defendant's vehicle in the Sallyport?
So we left Dighton around 4:16 p.m. and arrived in Canton at the police department at approximately 5:31 p.m.
And with reference to the Canton Police Department's Sallyport garage, why was the vehicle taken there?
You guys, that's an hour and 15 minutes. That's an hour and 15 minutes for a 30-mile drive. An hour and 15 minutes. It's a long time.
I wasn't part of that decision, but it's my understanding that it was a heated facility. The other options were, I believe, the barracks in Milton, but that's not large enough to house a vehicle that size, and it's not heated.
And in regard to the heated, what was the sort of purpose or utility of storing it in a heated set?
Miss Reed's vehicle was covered with snow and ice at the time. It was transported from Dighton to Canton.
And with regard to the Sallyport garage area of the Canton Police Department, at some point were you inside that area?
Yes.
And what, if any, observations did you make as far as the temperature or the heating within that facility?
I don't remember the exact, I couldn't put like a ballpark on temperature, but it was certainly warmer than outside.
Now, as far as the vehicle was concerned, either on scene, either in Dighton or at the Sallyport garage, or at any point in time that you were in the presence of that vehicle? What, if any, contact did you have? What, if anything, did you do or observe Sergeant Mechanic to do with regard to that damaged area you described on the right rear passenger side?
Yeah, Sergeant Mechanic and I never touched any part of that vehicle.
And as far as the moving it from sort of the tow truck. into
Okay,
the
right
Sallyport
there,
area,
right
how-
there. Why are you speaking for him? Why are you speaking for that man? Like, this should just show you what a big pussy he is, and what they all are, big pussies. I don't speak for anybody, and people don't speak for me. Okay, so why did you have to say? He's not asking you about Sergeant Buchanan, but that's where he has to show his loyalty. Like, hey, boy, look at, I got your back too. Me nor Sergeant Buchanan ever touched that vehicle. How do you know what that man did? Were you up his ass 24/7? You know what the man does when he goes to take a shit. You go with him. These two probably, they call them butt buddies back where I'm from. That tells you everything about the type of man that this guy is. He's not a man, but
The tow truck driver removed it from the tow truck and pulled it into the Sallyport bay.
Now, as far as prior to leaving that Sallyport area of the garage where the vehicle was, what, if anything, did you and Sergeant Mechanic do with reference to securing that vehicle or coordinating it off in any way, shape?
why don't you guys lay down any evidence blankets inside the vehicle? Like, for transfer, if you're going to get in there or anything like that. Like, I'm just curious.
We tried to set up a perimeter as best we could using caution tape, and just kind of sectioned it off with caution tape.
Now, at some point,
Why would you to caution something off? That's, like, I mean, so you need to notify your police officers that, hey, don't touch this. But yet you never once cautioned off the lawn of the Alberts for the duration of how many times you're going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. That was an active crime scene at that point. So you never thought to use caution, like the yellow tape around the front lawn, and man somebody there if you're going to keep on going back and forth, back and forth. But hey, we can't trust our officers, so we have to put caution tape around this vehicle. That's what I think about it. I'm just like, oh man. That just to me is just stupid.
you leave the Sallyport area, Canton Police Station, and where did you go from there?
We had a debrief meeting. So there's other troopers. There's troopers at scene on 34 Fairview Road. There's other troopers conducting interviews. So at the end of the night, members of my office met in a conference room at the Canton Police Department to exchange information as far as what everyone had learned throughout the day.
And as far as that meeting is concerned, that's just troopers from your unit, from your office, is that correct?
That's correct.
And
It was just troopers from his office. Now think about this. Remember the CERT team. We have the CERT team conducting what it is that they're conducting, right? And remember, the CERT team starts, the last person on the CERT team got there at 5:41. Okay, they start getting there from 5:21. So 5:21 to 5:41. Then you have the CERT team, O'Hara, testifying that there was there was 5 to 7 people, that guys in plain clothes. Okay. But he has this debrief meeting. How are you having a debriefing meeting? Okay. After this, if your men are over there still at 34 Fairview, how are you having a debriefing meeting without the people that went over there and that are helping with the CERT team? And you just said that you did not do any of this with the Canton Police Department people, right? So Canton was not involved with the debriefing. So then you have to put down on my timeline here, I put that this 6 to about 7:30, that he wants to say that this meeting took place, his debriefing. If you didn't do it with anybody that is involved with Canton or the first responders or anybody like that, then once again, how and when did you get this cell phone? When did you get John O'Keefe's cell phone? If you did not do that with Canton Police or Canton First Responders or EMT, anybody. And so I'm going to use Hector here. You guys might want to see it. Hold on. Let me go like this. and share screen here. Let's go over here. All right. So we get down over here where it's like, it's on the tow truck. It's leaving. You're following it. You get to the Sallyport. Then here, 521 to 541. This is the CERT team. Okay. Arriving at 34 Fairview, which is literally right down the road from Canton. Oopsies, that's this part. And this is Karen Reed's SUV. Arriving back here. Now, people want to say that is there a chance that that tow truck drove past 34 Fairview? Okay. And actually anything was broken out, busted up over there. Just saying. Because an hour and 15 minutes. It's a long time to get to this point, which is only 30 miles. Oh, if you take a detour, all right. Let me zoom in. And so your debriefing meeting didn't have anything to do with Canton. So when did you obtain John O'Keefe's cell phone in this?
So there were no members of Canton Police Department that were present for that.
No, correct.
And do you know why that was?
They had taken a step back from the investigation. They weren't going to participate in any interviews or anything of that nature.
And how was that communicated?
So then so right there you heard it. They weren't involved with that debriefing meeting because they had to step back. Okay. So again, this is going to go really, really good on cross-examination. Who gave you, if you didn't debrief, you didn't meet with them, when did you get John's phone? When did you get John's phone? But more importantly, what information could you possibly be getting? You need to debrief with Canton in some capacity, or are you going to say, here, write up your reports and then we're going to look at them? But like Canton's you need to get their dash cams, right? You need to. When did you start looking at their dash cams? Did you just interview Canton Police? When did you start interviewing these people then? Since they're not going to be involved with your meetings. You have to get the information from them. So you conducted interviews of the Canton Police Department. Think about it. He does not know anything other than his interview from Karen Reed, Jen McCabe, Matt McCabe, this man right here, and Brian Albert. Because everything else he was not involved with allegedly, and it was taken by people that were involved with the Canton Police Department, and they weren't involved in the debriefing. So where did you get all your information from? You didn't get any information. You got hearsay versions of whatever it may be, but you have no facts. He has no facts at 6:30 p.m. And who are you talking to that would possibly have facts? Because the CERT team, they were there and they said they packed up and they were done by, and now can you guys see why they're saying certain times? The CERT team was done by 6:15. 6:15 is when the CERT team. Because I said, wow, you guys searched for 35 minutes. Okay, 35 minutes. I think that's why Sean Good's report was written up so quickly, and all these other Canton Police Department officers' reports were written up so quickly, is because they had to turn them over to this man. Okay. And remember, the whole time that all this is going on, Higgins is just running around the Sallyport, swiping back and forth, swiping his badge. So much so that that's one of the Excel spreadsheets that I did not want to put out yet until these idiots testified. because I didn't want them to come over here and see anything. But wait till you see the phone calls compared to Brian or to Higgins' swipes to the phone calls. Wait till you see this on a spreadsheet. You're going to be like, wait, what? When you put all of this stuff of everybody, what they're doing on a timeline everywhere, sticks a master one right down the list, you're just going to be like, you can't look at this and not think that there's collusion here. You can't look at this and not think that there's corruption. And you want to say that, oh, this is you're a conspiracy theorist? No, I'm just following the evidence. I'm following the evidence. I'm taking their testimonies and I'm plugging it in a timesheet. Here you go. And if you think that my timeline's wrong, I would love for people to always email me, because I'm human. I can make mistakes, but I can promise you it's not off of, oh, let me go ahead and fudge this. No, man. I want the truth.
Communicated to you and Sergeant Buchanan?
Best of my recollection was that debrief meeting that we were informed that essentially Canton PD would be taking a step back from the investigation, and that now this is just solely a Norfolk State Police investigation.
So before we get to sort of the debriefing and all that's covered in that, as far as when you're on call, you get a call for any kind of sort of homicide or unattended death or anything like that. You then become what's called a case officer for that investigation. Is that correct?
Correct.
And can you describe?
He says, before we get to any part of this debriefing, and we're going to come back to that, I don't think he ever comes back to it, because now he wants to talk about this.
For the jury, what the duty or the role is of case officer vis-a-vis the rest of the members.
So essentially, a case officer is more of a facilitator. You kind of delegate out tasks, coordinate interviews. The case officer isn't the sole decision maker. I have supervisors. I have that we bounce ideas off of. I get feedback from. I also keep them updated. It's a collaborative effort in each investigation. We're a small office, so when a homicide comes in, everyone essentially drops what they're doing, and we all work on it together. So it's a collective effort to work on these cases. And essentially, the case officer is just kind of the record keeper of all the reports that come in and video that comes in.
The record keeper. He just called himself a record keeper, guys. Take that to the bank. He's supposed to keep track of everything that's coming in. That's why you're supposed to be very organized.
But when it comes down to decision-making time, it's a group effort.
It's a group effort, though, for decisions.
Now, with reference to that collaborative effort that you were discussing in this sort of debriefing meeting, so there were other troopers doing other things or other tasks throughout the course of the day of the 29th, correct?
Yes.
And so what was sort of the purpose of or not specifically what was discussed, but in general terms, what was discussed during the course of this debriefing?
The taillight piece is found at 34 Fairview Road by CERT. The one sneaker found.
Okay. So this is what he says the debriefing was. So he couldn't have had a conversation to get any of this information until O'Hara would have been back. Okay. So you have to be waiting around for the CERT team to do whatever they're doing, to then get on over to Canton Police Department and say, hey guys, this is what we got. This is what we found. All right. So that's telling me that this is wild. So you just sat around Canton Police Department waiting there until the CERT team got over to you? Until what time? Because the CERT team was still searching until 6:15. You said you were done in the Sallyport just within 2 minutes of getting there at 5:31, 5:36. So from 5:36 until 6:15, when the CERT team was done, by the time that they then could get over to you, let's go 6:30. What did you do, Proctor, between 5:36 and 6:30 p.m.?
At 34 Fairview Road, interviews conducted, and then Sergeant Buchanan and I have shared everything we had kind of learned throughout the day as well.
And that debriefing meeting.
But you and Buchanan did everything together. So what is there really to talk about if you did everything together, right? You watched everything he did. He watched everything that you did because y'all are together, right? So that should have just taken no time. Then what? Like, you guys have notes? You guys were looking at each other's notes?
Do you know about how long approximately did that take in this case?
I can't recall, maybe half hour.
And so following that meeting, where did you go from there?
Sergeant Buchanan and I had secured some evidence, the clothing from Good Samaritan Hospital, the additional sneaker found at 34 Fairview Road, as well as the taillight pieces discovered at 34 Fairview Road. And
wait, so they found the sneaker at 34 Fairview Road. He's saying He is saying that they found the sneaker at 34 Fairview Road that night. Did you guys just catch that? Did you guys catch that right there? I'm going to rewind this for you guys to hear because this is my boom. This is my boom of the day. Okay. Ready? Please, ladies and gentlemen, listen to what this man just said.
That debriefing meeting, if you know about how long approximately did that take in this case?
I can't recall, maybe half hour.
And so following that meeting, where did you go from there?
The Sergeant Mechanic and I had secured some evidence, the clothing from Good Samaritan Hospital, the additional sneaker found at 34 Fairview Road, as well as the taillight pieces discovered at 34 Fairview Road, and Mr. O'Keefe's cell phone and Miss Reed's cell phone, and him and I transported those to the office in Canton.
But I thought that you were at the office in Canton. Where did you do your debriefing? Where did you do your debriefing? And you're saying that you found the shoe that night, right? So when Mr. Good wrote up his report and it had his picture to show that section of the curb that had nothing there, right? Then just a couple hours later, and after you guys sift through that same area where you brushed off all of that curb to show that there was nothing there, you then put a sneaker there. And then you realized that what Good had put up in his report, and you were like, holy shit, you have to delete, you got to take that picture down. You got to take that picture down, and that cannot be the picture that leads your report, because that's where we found the sneaker. And how could we find the sneaker there and you guys not find a sneaker? Do you guys understand why they had to change that picture now? Because that picture shows that there was no sneaker there. There was no hat over there. Okay. Then Good changes his report. Nothing of the report got changed except for the picture. The picture had to come. The picture had to come off. And it could not be the lead picture anymore. What is up, Amy? I love her. I know. I'm going to see you soon, love. Oh, hopefully if you're in Boston. You better be in Boston. Amy in Boston, baby. Do you guys see that? This man says that he had to, he got Reed's phone, John's phone. Oh, got the sneaker because Cert found the sneaker. Okay. Where'd you find that sneaker? Oh, up against the same curb like this. So this is where they found the sneaker. So then I go back to this portion right here to show you guys that on the break, this is the picture that Sean Good right here had taken. And to show like, hey, this is the curb. See this little area right there? See all that? Then literally they take another picture of the same area. Oh, and there's a sneaker there. See this area right here? See that? That's the same fluff job right here. And then here's his report that Alan Jackson nailed hard home. This is your report, Good, that you put in, this incident report, right? It had the picture that you took at the time when Canton was there, and it has, you guys showed the curb. And it had there's a sneaker there. And it lines up perfectly with the pole exactly where you were. And then, now all of a sudden we have this here, and you had to change let me go right. This is where I show it. I show how it is the same area where they scraped it all off. That's your little fluff job. It even has like the way the curb looked. And that's it right there. Okay. That's the picture from earlier. And he's like, oh shit, I have to change my report. And it went from having this picture to having that other picture right there, down there. And you changed the report on 10/25/2022. He's like, no, it's just when I printed it now. See, then this 1/30/2022. So then Alan Jackson showed him that. No, 1/30/2022 versus when you did it 1/29. And he's like, why'd you change it? Why'd you change the picture? He's like, what? Didn't change the picture. We just added it. Then here's a better one. How would you add Massachusetts State Police pictures to your report, you sick son of a bitch? You couldn't have. You weren't on the case anymore. You didn't have those pictures. Those were Massachusetts State Police pictures. You didn't have those. So therefore you couldn't have changed your version of it because we kept uploading, pictures. No, you're a liar. You're lying. You're absolutely lying. And this is proof of it. Alan Jackson, this is why he was hitting it home, because he's going to come back to show everybody this. He's going to come back to talk about this right here on why this was switched out. The report date time, 1/29/2022 at, 6 hours, 24 seconds. This is Sean Good right here. And then you switch out your picture because this shows no shoe. Now, let's take a look at the next part. Is he says, okay, they do the debrief, so 310.
And video comes in. But when it comes down to decision-making time, it's a group effort.
Now, with reference to that collaborative effort that you were just discussing and this sort of debriefing meeting, so there were other troopers doing other things or other tasks throughout the course of the day of the 29th, correct?
Yes.
And so what was sort of the purpose of or not specifically what was discussed, but in general terms, what was discussed?
And let me tell you something. That's not even true. The only people that were doing anything was the CERT team. Okay. And that was for 35 minutes. Nobody else was doing anything that day other than the CERT team for 35 minutes from 5:41 until 6:15. Does everybody understand that? When he's saying that there's other officers doing all these other things that day, that is absolutely not true. Him and Bukaki are together. They're the only ones doing anything that day other than the CERT team because everybody else is Canton Police Department and they're off of it. They were done at 9 a.m.
The taillight piece is found at 34 Fairview Road by CERT. The one sneaker found at 34 Fairview Road. Interviews conducted, and then Sergeant Mechanic and I have shared everything we had kind of learned throughout the day as well.
And that debriefing meeting, if you know about how long approximately did that take in this case?
I can't recall, maybe half hour.
And so following that meeting, where did you go from there?
When did you write up your search warrant for Karen Reed's vehicle? How about that? How do we start there? When did you do that?
Sergeant Mechanic and I had secured some evidence, the clothing from Good Samaritan Hospital, the additional sneaker found at 34 Fairview Road, as well as the taillight pieces discovered at 34 Fairview Road, and Mr. O'Keefe's cell phone and Miss Reed's cell phone, and him and I transported those to the office in Canton.
But weren't you? What do you mean? Okay, so let's check this out. Where's the blood? Where's the red Solo cups? Because you didn't collect the phone of John O'Keefe's, but yet you had it. So why don't you have the red Solo cups worth of blood? Where's that? You should have that then, because you didn't collect that either. You don't have that. You didn't mention it. But then the phone that you didn't collect that was John O'Keefe's, you somehow have. And you're going to take, but you're not taking, but nobody said, hey, we have these red Solo cups worth of blood.
And when you transported them to the office in Canton, what, if anything, did you do with those items?
The two cell phones were given to Trooper Nicholas Garino, and the clothing was laid out on top of butcher paper to dry out in our evidence intake area. And then the bag taillight pieces were set aside in the evidence intake processing area. Sergeant Buchanan and I didn't have access to the permanent evidence locker area, so we just secured them in the temporary intake area.
And that leads me to my next question. As far as the area that you're talking about with regard to holding items and the other items that you secured beyond the cell phones, that was in a secure area of your office, is that correct?
Correct.
And by secure, I mean restricted access to the troopers within your unit, correct?
Correct. It's you need a key card, and it's also equipped with an alarm.
Now,
So you
following
had
that,
access to it,
As
though.
far as these items of evidence and other items of evidence
So there was this temporary hold.
used throughout the course of an investigation, how is it that they go, or what, if anything, is done, if you know, between the time that they go from this temporary storage area to the permanent storage area?
Yeah, I'm not an evidence officer. I never have been. My understanding is once it's in the evidence processing area, it gets put into the permanent evidence room that only, like I said, two troopers and a detective lieutenant have access to. And it's the evidence officer's responsibility to process that material when they see fit.
When they see fit, they process this material when they see fit. So he doesn't know what happened to anything. Do you guys understand that the phone and the red solo cup with blood, it should be the same thing? Because Massachusetts State Police did not recover those things. And so how are you treating the blood? How are you treating so you're telling me Gallagher never told you, hey, got this blood. Gotta get this blood. And it just winds up somehow in the Sallyport, right by Karen Reed's car, opened, because he doesn't even know that there's bags, such thing as evidence bags, nor evidence red tape. But you guys sure shit look like you guys use a lot of tape, overly using your red tape, that you had to go get yellow tape because you ran out of it. You guys, who believes this? Or better yet, if this is true, what are you guys doing? How are you training? Like, this is how you're being trained? So far, he's the only one who claims to have had possession of John Keefe's phone. Well, Carrie Roberts said that she took possession of it first when she saw it laying underneath John when he was picked up off the ground. But yet, John O'Keefe's phone starts moving way before he was picked up off the ground. At 6:04, his phone starts moving, and he's not off the ground until 6:16 to 6:16. So they got some issues there. And now he just has no idea that there's an interim process because there's a temporary. Like, why would these ever be in temporary? I don't understand that. Is it because it was after hours? Is it because the evidence people only work from 9 to 5? And hey, if you come in with evidence after 5 o'clock or on the weekends, hey, you're gonna have to wait till we get to work.
If I could turn your attention to February 1st of 2022, were you working in regard to this investigation on that date as well?
Yes.
And at some point, did you have occasion to go back to
For my system.
what does it say?
I called earlier, Dolph earlier, and mom was puking in the background.
And do you recall what that was in regard to?
From the sounds of it, my mother had a stomach bug.
Courtney's
Sir,
messages
if I could direct your
and on the
attention
30th
to,
and his friends and on the
page
31st, he
2667.
knew to stop. Somebody told him something happened. Or they only had like a 6-month warrant.
And these are text messages from January
Subpoena.
29th, 2022, between yourself and your sister, Courtney.
Correct.
And if you could read from the top of the page through the end, and please indicate to the jury as far as who's talking and who's saying what.
So I texted my sister at work, "What's up?" She responds, "What? Why?" I respond, "I just found it frozen to death on a front lawn in Canton this morning. Actually just interviewed Jen McCabe. said she knows you,
And they knows you. Who are you referring to?
my sister.
And how did your sister respond to that?
Cut the shit. I responded you. It was a typo correction with my response to you. She responded, yeah, she knows Jack very well. She's really good friends with Julie. My sister continues on. Her sister is married to Brian Albert. My sister asks, you still working, question mark. I says, yeah, going to be out for a while. Homicide.
And as far as your answers to those questions, or as far as your communications, that
Carrie didn't tell him.
Other documents, is that
So what-
recognize that?
What
Jen
time
told
is
him
this?
That she,
Yes, I do.
Carrie
What do you
Roberts.
recognize that to be, sir?
Text communications between my sister and I.
That's your sister Courtney, is that correct?
That's correct.
And similar to what I'd asked you about the prior packet, as far as the first message sent, date and time, last message sent, date and time, what is indicated on this first?
First message sent, date, time, December 10th, 2021 at 9:33 p.m. Last message sent, 8:30, 2022 at 8:48 p.m.
And 8:30, that's August 30th, is that correct?
I'm sorry, yes, August 30th, 2022.
And similarly to the other messages, is there an indication as far as how many number of messages were sent between yourself and your sister over that time period?
2,865.
And fair to say that the documents in front of you do not contain 2,865 messages?
Correct.
Now, just in reference to the first message on page 2662, the first page in this packet, do you see that from December 10th of 2021 at approximately 9:33 p.m.?
Yes.
And what does that indicate?
A text message from my sister.
What does it say?
I called earlier, Dolph earlier, and mom was puking in the background.
And do you recall what that was in regard to?
From the sounds of it, my mother had the stomach bug.
Courtney's
Sir,
messages
if I could direct your
and on the
attention
30th
to,
and his friends and on the
page
31st, he knew
2667.
to stop. Somebody told him something happened.
And these are text messages from January 29th, 2022, between yourself and your sister Courtney. correct?
Yeah, January 29th, but she doesn't say what time.
Correct.
And if you could read from the top of the page through the end, and please indicate to the jury as far as who's talking and who's saying what.
So I texted my sister at work, what's up? She responds, what? Why? I respond, just found it frozen to death on a front lawn in Canton this morning.
We just found.
Who's talking and who's saying what.
So I texted my sister at work, what's up? She responds, what? Why? I respond, just found it frozen to death on a front lawn in Canton this morning. Actually just interviewed Jen McCabe, said she knows
Okay.
you.
And they knows you. Who are you referring to?
All right. Just interviewed Jen McCabe. That would indicate that that was at 12. Jen McCabe was from 11:30 to 12:30. So I'm marking this down. That if he's saying I just interviewed Jen McCabe, so I'm going with the Courtney text at 12:45. Let's say p.m.
My sister.
And how did your sister respond to that?
Cut the shit. I responded you. It was a typo correction with my response to you. She responded, yeah, she knows Jack very well. She's really good friends with Julie. My sister continues on. Her sister is married to Brian Albert. My sister asks, you still working, question mark.
She told her brother like he knew who Brian Albert was. Okay, right there. The way that Courtney's saying it to her brother is like she's married to Brian Albert. And if he didn't know who Brian Albert was, he would have been like, why would you even say that if you're Courtney? You're saying that because you know that your brother knows who Brian Albert is. To saying, oh yeah, her sister's married to Brian Albert. Right there. Right there, that is to me as a very logical human being, you wouldn't even say that if you don't think that your brother knows who Brian Albert is. Oh yeah, her sister's married to Brian Albert. He didn't say, what? Who's Brian Albert? What? Who's Brian Albert? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? All right? That's really, really important. So right there, Courtney's connecting it for homeboy, her brother, to say, oh, no shit. I was like, she's married to Brian, her sister's married to Brian Albert. Boom, right there. He's not like, who the fuck's Brian Albert? He's like, yeah, I know that. They say like, oh, I just interviewed him too,
I said, yeah, going to be out for a while.
He said, yep.
Homicide.
And as far as your
12:30, homicide. 12:30, homicide.
answers to those questions, or as far as your communications that you had with your sister at this time on the afternoon of January 29th, what were those in regard to, or why were you communicating that to your sister?
At that time, it was just kind of in the news. I was just kind of
Wait, I immediately catch that. Wait,
letting her know.
that wasn't in the news yet.
That
wasn't in the news yet. It just happened. Nobody. What are you talking about? You guys, he says it was just in the news. No, Mom, you just texted your sister at 12:45, and you said it was in the news. It was in the news. What? At 12:45? Who knew? Who knew about that at 12:45? You just found, what? Who went to the news stations? He totally messes up there. And I hope that Alan Jackson caught that. Because that's not in the news at 12:45 when you were talking to your sister. Oh, it was in the news, so we were talking about. No, you weren't. None of that happened yet. This is 12:45. You just found the body that day. Okay. Like, no, that's not why it wasn't in the news. You told your sister and you're talking to your sister. And you guys do know that just because there's text messages, I would love to know if they had phone conversations. Yeah, we found a frozen body. Yeah. There was nobody there. Nobody knew about this yet.
Didn't share anything specific. I wouldn't share anything specific on cases, my family or anyone. It was just kind of an overall innocent conversation.
Now, turning your attention to the next page, 2669. Again, if you could read from that page as far as who was talking and what the content is.
Now, this is at 3:00.
All right. My sister starts off, the Can't thing is a homicide. I respond. This is at 3 in the afternoon on the 29th.
3 in the afternoon of the 29th. Let me tell you where he says he is. He would have been at Karen Reed's sitting there. He just had called. So at 3:00, he just had called the Baros guy to say, hey, can you meet us on over there? So at 3:00, she's texting her brother at 3 at the same time that he's saying, meet us over at Karen Reed's house.
Don't say a word to anyone. She said, of course not. I respond.
Don't say a word to anyone. 3:00. Okay, and then
and the very least, it's suspicious. She responds, this is your livelihood. And then I would never miss with that. 3:07, I respond, Julie and Chris were at the bar with the victim and girlfriend. Got to interview them.
3:07. Julie and Chris were at the bar. I have to interview them. He doesn't even have to say Julie, Chris, Albert. It's just Julie and Chris, boom. There's no Julie and Chris. Julie and Chris. This is not Julie and Chris who?
I'd like to direct your attention to page 2672. These are messages from February 1st, 2022. Is that correct?
Correct.
And the one at the top starts about February 1st, 5:57 p.m. Is that correct?
Yes.
And again, if you could read through as far as who's speaking and what the contents of those messages are.
I texted my sister, "What's up?" She responded, "Nothing. Just saw Julie, and she said when this is all over, she wants to get you a thank you gift." And I respond, "Get a
She just saw Julie, okay, at 5:57, okay? Julie. So at 5:57, this would have been after the Sallyport, okay, 5:57 p.m., just saw Julie. Now, where has it been said that Trooper Proctor had talked to Julie or Chris Albert yet? February 1st. Okay. Where does it say at any point in time that he talked to Julie or Chris Albert? Again, this is February 1st. So, but 5:57 p.m., February 1st. So, this is the day that they went back to the Sallyport to do all of, processing of that vehicle, which we'll find out when. But on February 1st, the next day,
Elizabeth one." Elizabeth's my wife. And my sister responds, "Because I guess her and Chris were friends with John, and she's so proud of you for leading this." And then she writes, "Elizabeth?" ? I respond with, "She's been stuck with the kids for the last 10 nights." My sister responded with, "Yeah, but she knew what life is like married to a cop."
And sir, as far as the gift that's mentioned, as far as Julie Albert, is that anything that you have received at any point in time?
I never received a gift. I never asked for a gift. My wife never received a gift. She never asked for a gift.
How would you describe?
wait,
But she knew what life is like married.
right there you do though. You say,
These are messages from February 1st, 2022. Is that correct?
Correct.
And the one at the top starts about February 1st, 5:57 p.m. Is that correct?
Yes.
And again, if you could read through as far as who's speaking and what the contents of those messages are.
I texted my sister, "What's up?" She responded, "Nothing. Just saw Julie, and she said when this is all over, she wants to get you a thank you gift." And I respond, "Get Elizabeth one."
right there. Get Elizabeth one. Get Elizabeth one. Now watch what his answer is. He says, get Elizabeth one. Elizabeth is his wife. Now watch. Listen to his most ridiculously stupid answer I've ever heard in this trial.
Elizabeth's my wife. And my sister responds, "Because I guess her and Chris were friends with John, and she's so proud of you for leading this." And then she writes, "Elizabeth?" ? I respond with, "She's been stuck with the..."
That's when you have a little cover up, when you realize, like, oh shit, I probably shouldn't have wrote that. And then she has to make that, like, her sister's no dummy. She's like, he probably actually called her and said, what the fuck are you writing that for? And then so she writes that bullshit. But then listen to this part.
"Kids for the last 10 nights. My sister responded with, "Yeah, but she knew what life is like married to a cop."
And sir, as far as the gift that's mentioned, as far as Julie Albert, is that anything that you have received at any point in time?
I never received a gift. I never asked for a gift. My wife never received a gift. She never asked for a gift.
But you asked for the gift for your wife. He just said, get Elizabeth one. He just said, get Elizabeth one. Get Elizabeth one. You guys get Elizabeth one. And then so like literally the next sentence, he just does not know how to tell the truth at all. Right? Like, we struggle with that. He seriously says, get Elizabeth one. Get Elizabeth. He says, literally his next sentence after Lally says that you get a gift, he should have just said no. He says, no, I didn't ask for a gift. My wife didn't ask for a gift. No, but you asked for your wife to get a gift. She never asked for the gift. No, but you asked for a gift, but you asked for the person to be receiving the gift be your wife. This fool. Asking and commanding are different things. No, he says, get Elizabeth the gift. Like, no, don't get me one. Get it for Elizabeth. Give it to Elizabeth. Give it to Elizabeth. You guys, this is hilarious to me. See these semantics, you know? But this idiot, he's just stupid. Like, I can only imagine what this guy's GPA was in high school. He's not somebody I would have copied off of. Let's just say that. And he's also somebody I wouldn't let copy off of me because no, you bring nothing to the table. Yeah, man, I'm gonna give you a cup one day though. I'll get you out of a ticket. You ain't gonna have a job tomorrow, buddy. You ain't gonna have a job. Sorry about your luck. I'm gonna go ahead and slow down the chat, by the way. I love when everybody's opinionated. I love it. Chip's a dip. You guys know that his wife took to social media yesterday. What an ass clown. I love ass clowns though. Show that ass, girl. Show that ass. She's showing it all right. Michael, I'm so proud of him. You guys know that, right? She took to one of the social platforms, acting like a complete fool. No shame in her game. No shame. There you go. That's for you, Donna. What did his wife say? You guys haven't seen this? You guys want me to read it for you? She was seeing red when she wrote because it's like just run on sentence after run on sentence. You could tell there's not many brains going on in that family, man. She said she's proud of him. Yep. She said she's proud of Mike, whatever she calls him. I'll read it for you guys. She took to the social media world. She wanted everybody to know how proud she is. She's so proud of him. I'm so proud of him. Let's see. I couldn't even believe my own eyes when I read that. What a doof. Complete freaking moron. Let's see. Here we go. You got straight up he humiliated okay. She took and said, throughout this year, we have seen the worst of our society through social media, but now it is crossed from the vile messages on the internet into our physical lives. There is knowing intent to try to harm and intimidate us. People drive by our home regularly, take photos and send them to us to try to scare us that we are being watched. Photos of our children have been sent to us and our friends, letters that say they hope our children get C diagnosis because it would be karma for what horrible parents we are. We have been told to K ourselves to take a bullet to the roof of our mouths. But she spells it THAY, this world would be better without us, and that our children deserve better. Voicemail saying people are going to come and take our kids away. Well, you're the police. Did you get some protection orders? And the sad thing is that this behavior has been considered okay, even by people we thought we trusted. Makes no sense. This is just so passive aggressive. Call out the people that you think are not trustworthy. You know, the people that have turned their backs on you. Call them out then. Have some brass balls. This harassment is daily. And I can never fully put into words the toll this has taken on us and all the other families involved. None of this is okay. And I look forward to the day this behavior is put to an end. I couldn't be prouder of Mike. He took an oath to protect and serve, and he has done just that. The truth will always prevail. There's more. The past 14 months have been stranger than fiction. I could never have imagined what our family would go through. Is this serious? Jen! Somebody open up the champagne bottles. Jen! Okay, this isn't Jen. You guys, this is Proctor's wife. Okay, so her name's Cody. Wait, no, wait. Her name's Elizabeth. Lizzie. Oh, shit. Okay, next up. As a law enforcement family, you expect some difficult days because of the nature of the work, especially in the homicide unit. The inherent risks of the job, the long hours seeing horrific crime scenes, you don't see any of it. And sometimes having to deliver the worst news to families. Nope. It is what police officers sign up for when they enter the profession, and by extension, their families too. My God, I hope he's not involving you like that. I thought he says he doesn't take home his work and he doesn't talk to his family about anything. So now you're just absolutely contradicting your own husband's testimony. What a moron. This woman just, I mean, who is your PR person, girl? I know a really good PR person you might want to give a contact call to. It is what police officers sign up for when they enter the profession, and by extension, their families too. But being labeled corrupt, a criminal, a cop killer, bullied, slandered, harassed, and threats to our family on a regular basis was never something on our radar of things we would need to worry about. This case has revealed the toxicity of social media and the threat to justice by narrow-minded bloggers and their cult following who question nothing. This has nothing to do about a blogger. This has nothing to do about a blogger. Your husband's behavior before a blogger ever came into the world, a blogger just simply exposed the truth. And you can't handle it, can you? You don't even know when to shut your mouth and put a big in it. Sadly, the death of a Boston police officer, which none of you guys refer to him as a Boston police officer. You can't even say Officer O'Keefe. None of those troopers have said Officer O'Keefe. Nobody that has taken the stand has said Officer O'Keefe. And yet here you want to try to use his name in your ridiculously pathetic post with so many errors. Sadly, the death of a Boston police officer has become their entertainment. Weaving and twisting facts, F-A-X, facts. Tell me she did not write this. Facts. Into a fictional story that is much more attention-grabbing and tantalizing than as it really is a drunk driver hit-and-run case. A drunk driver hit-and-run case, it wouldn't be murder, honey. God, what world do you live in, broad? To the blogger's followers, I am nobody's follower, sugar tits. I am the motherfucking leader right here. I don't know who you calling a follower. Okay, you could just back up. Lizzie, they're outside. They're taking pictures of our vehicles. Call the police. Sadly, the death of a Boston police officer has become their entertainment, weaving and twisting facts, F-A-X, into a fictional story that is much more entertaining, grabbing, and tantalizing than it really is. It's a drunk driver hit and run. That's funny that none of your people that you're friends with happen to see this drunk driving incident, even though they were all glued to the, as you say, this is a drunk driving hit and run incident, but none of them saw anything, no screeching tires, no nothing. And then when they've all walked outside, none of them saw this person, John O'Keefe, Officer O'Keefe. To the blogger's followers, we are just characters in their story. No, you are the problem. You are a virus. You are a virus. You and your husband and all these people that are involved are all viruses that we want to get rid of. You know how you get rid of a virus? How do you get rid of a virus? You handle it. We're just handling you. There is a suspension of reality. Wait, excuse me? There is a suspension of reality like it's a video game. Excuse me? Who is this woman? This doesn't even make any sense. There is a suspension of reality like it's a video game, which empowers them to do and say anything they want. Well, we do have our First Amendment rights, number one, but your name hasn't been like. I think Turtle Boy's only said that he feels bad for you, that your kids are going to grow up without a father. You know, I mean, I don't know. But now, and what I've always been saying is, trust me, you marry your kind. The wives are no better. I must believe they suffer from the disillusionment. I must believe they suffer from the disillusionment because I cannot imagine rational people believe in what they are doing and saying is okay to so many innocent families. I can't believe that you have the audacity to write this. This is Lizzie Proctor writing. Oh my God, there's more. Oh my God. She's a nut. That girl's gonna need some serious therapy. She's just, let's get her some therapy, man. I might have to get a Lizzie Proctor shirt now. Because I thought I'm gonna book you up by Alan Jackson shirt was, pull up bitch was my favorite. I might have to have a 1-800 ABCDEFG hooked on phonics worked for me and a Lizzie Proctor shirt. Take that shit to the bank. She really didn't think her comments on social media were going to bite her. Lizzie Proctor wrote that the husband of Michael Proctor, the wife of Michael Proctor wrote that after this display of despicableness yesterday on the stand. She took to social media only to tell us how much she is proud of her husband and she doesn't even mention anything about, it's like, poor me, poor me, poor me. Well, everything that you're speaking of is, yeah, it's poor you, but it ain't our fault. It's your fault. We have a choice every day who we say yes to, and you said yes to the wrong man. The fact that he is still on active duty just blows my mind. I don't think that's going to end up being a thing that's going to continue on, to be honest. It shouldn't, but it's just all of our faults, guys. So 1-800-ABCDEFG hooked on phonics worked for me. And if you could please put Elizabeth Proctor's picture on the front of it, I would like to purchase it from Matt Hale. Is that his name? Who's making those shirts over there? I know Amy knows. Amy, where you at, girl? I want that Hale guy to make me a shirt that says 1-800-ABCDEFG didn't work for me and put Elizabeth Proctor on it. That's my shirt. She wants to be a part of this. Make her a part of it. But yeah, anyways, that's what, is it Brian? Yeah. Can I get a Brian Hale original? Brian Hale, you didn't realize that you were going to be getting props today. All right, guys, I wanted to keep this right around 2 hours because I'm going to come back with the rest of it. I just wanted to be talking about the case in terms of, okay, the text messages, they are what they are. But if we're beating down the facts, we can still point out all of the facts that in this timeline that they want us to go with. And I'm going to pull up the reports. I'm going to pull up the reports to talk about. We're going to talk about Flamati tonight. We're going to talk about Julie and talking to Proctor, and then we're going to finish out the last of it so we can be ready for tomorrow's huge cross-examination because that's going to really get into the facts. And then I think he's going to hammer it one last time with those text messages. I think every time he's going to try to use that. So on your way out, please thumbs it up, thumbs it down. You're going to have an opinion. Make yourself known. Again, truth and transparency. Appreciate you guys. Thank you for the Cash App. I know I thought I said I want to say it again. Such a sweetheart. When I looked at this, Where is it? There she is. Oh, not that one. Oh, not that one. Sherry, if you're still listening. Yes, Sherry, you are. You are. Sherry, thank you so much. That was awesome. Thank you for the cash. I appreciate that. Did you write anything? Did you have a question? You know. Heart that. Again, a new member there. Josie's on a vacation far away. Welcome, girl. Charlie, I like the name Charlie. I like the name Charlie. Welcome, Charlie. Little tip. Boom. WB, love you. Love your support. Jackson tomorrow is going to be amazing. Absolutely. I hope he watches some of my live today to really hit home on. I want him to hit home back on that report, the good report, the picture. Let the jurors see that again. Let the jurors see that there was no shoe there, and then there is a shoe. You guys, this timeline, I'm just blowing it up. So as soon as Proctor's off the stand, I will release my Excel spreadsheet, but I'm not letting that mofo see any of this. Brian Hale, he is the sweetest. I know, Amy. I want a shirt. And so, yeah, I got to get in touch. But yeah, thank you guys. Thank you for all the kind words. So everyone, please join us later, as Murky says. And then, as always, join us tomorrow. We show the lives here, and I get cowbell crazy. Lizzie Proctor, come on down, baby girl. Let's rumble. All right, guys, take care. See you later. Bye.